Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our deep dive into this radical feminist book, and it has been a journey. It's important for us to do so that we are familiar with their ideas and can give an Islamic response, and also engage with their content so that we have solutions at hand for youths who are struggling with the propaganda that's being pushed on them in public schools and in colleges. Let us begin. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Alright. Now, she was going in on relationships, and she was slamming nice girls, and she was talking about dominance and ownership, and how she got tickets to the friend zones for being very enthusiastic about liking intimacy, and she's resentful for that. That's the note that we're on, okay? Let's continue. But consent is not a kink. A sexual culture predicted on violence insists that openness and honesty are unthinkable boner killers. Now, openness and honesty. Okay, so I think she lacks the understanding of the male mind, but at the same time, she does see some of the dilemmas. If you are like, hey honey, I'm really so open to doing everything, and I'm just so like sharing my body with like everyone. I mean, a guy can be like, oh really? How many are we talking here, you know? And he's gonna get scared because of STDs and maybe thinking you had an abortion, right? I think it's a survival technique. If a woman is overly enthusiastic, you're probably not her first or last, and they worry about cheating. And France bans men from doing paternity tests. So I bet you there's a lot of men paying for children that are not theirs, right? So not everywhere are men able to verify if their kids are theirs. So they worry when somebody is hypersexual because it questions their discipline of their hormones, of their beastly nature, right? That's how they see it in a way. That things are better with a bit of mystery. So she's mad here that sometimes women have to have mystery. I mean, you don't want to know everything about somebody. Keep some things to yourself, right? This is something I've had to learn, and this is actually pretty wise to push, is that, you know, you don't need to be an open book with a man. And she got friend zoned because she was showing too much enthusiasm for intimacy, and she was in bed by the third date. And I don't think a lot of men want to get some nasty syphilis or gonorrhea or herpes while messing around with women like that. And it leaves a lot of us unable to name abuse for what it is, much less be honest about our own desire. I don't think that's abuse. Right? Now she's playing with the word abuse. So what do we do about consent when active female desire is a turnoff? Okay, so active female desire. Hold on here. There's a thing we need to clarify. Like when people get married, the desire turns off. The monotony sets in. Keep your desire alive within the bounds of marriage. Who has earned it? He has proven himself. He has earned your hand in marriage. Let your desire be for him, even if you get bored sometimes. Try your best, both of you working together, to have some romance in there. But active female desire for every Tom, Dick, and Harry that comes up to you isn't responsible, and is quite dangerous. And a child shouldn't have to be aborted, aka dismembered, because you couldn't control yourself and you could let yourself get busted in 10 minutes, right, of intimacy. Really think about the raw and real reality here. It's a clever way to say active female desire when it can just be your hypersexual nature that makes men afraid of your sort of Jezebel witchy spirit, which is a paradox, yes. Men will watch those actresses in the disgusting, degenerate adult films, but when it comes to a real-life human being who they want to pair bond with and create a family with and trust with their children, that's where it changes. It's a difficult paradox, but the reality is, you have to be careful. And so a lot of female desire within marriage is wanting, whereas when women are nearly half naked standing outside a club and talking about all the gross things they want to do, it's like a walking billboard for don't take me seriously. I get how women are confused by that, right? But you just gotta be so smarter. What do we do when women are supposed to say no when we mean yes, and I've got a boyfriend when we mean no? Okay, I can see your point there. A lot of women do say, like, I got a boyfriend in order to get a creepo away, but these days, some men don't care if you're married, they don't care if you got 5 boyfriends, they just want to get it, and wham bam, thank you ma'am, and see you later, right? And so, it's important that you literally can just say, no thanks, I'm not interested. Be careful of the way you reject. Some men, unfortunately, get violent, but that's why in America, the Second Amendment is there, you got pepper spray, get you a good dog. You gotta be firm with some men who go crazy and call you all kinds of names and stalk you when you reject them. And so I can get that sometimes saying I have a boyfriend is the easy way and the safer way, but nothing's holding you back from saying, oh no, thank you, or finding some other excuse. Now, the coy part of no when you mean yes, it's a little bit of a play. It does ruin when you actually do mean no. I understand that. When you're like, no, the person's like doing anything, I said no, and then a woman squeezes his arm or slaps him or like bites him or something where she's like, I said no, right? That becomes a problem because the men are like, I don't get it. This creates confusion and muddies the waters of what consent is, right? Versus when you're playing around saying no, and when a man can coerce you and wear you down into saying yes after you've said no multiple times. That is a problem. I do agree with that, right? Some women, when they say no, they want the man to keep trying so they can not feel guilty about when they give in. It's a mess. It's a mess. That's why you have to be careful what kind of man you get around. Because with the kind of women he's dealt with and the tactics he's used on them, he's going to try on you. So you have to be careful. Men who mouth the language of erotic liberation are often secretly terrified of women's sexual agency. I wonder what... So erotic liberation sounds funny. I wonder what she's saying. I don't know what men... I mean, there are some simpish, degenerate men who... a lot of red pill men are actually, full of debauchery. They rotate women, deflower women, brag about how many women they've had. They don't want to get married, so they just want to, stack up a woman's body count. If you try to take their adult films away, they'll freak out. So they do, in a way, want some women to be erotically liberated, but to their own demise and to the demise of the nuclear family and of decency. So there's tons of men who are willing to make money off of women's sexual agency, but they are not ready to support women who do something better with their lives. It is quite strange. Men will provide for a good woman, but then also give money and views that turn into money to women who they wouldn't want to marry. It's bizarre. The sexually free woman remains a figure of popular and moral horror. Moral horror? Yes. When we say free, we have to remember one needs to be within the bounds of their marriage. You're free to have the positions you want, the safe locations where you want, the time of day you want, right? How many times you want, without being neglectful, that is. You know, you're free within the confines of your marriage. When you are being a homewrecker, going from married man to married man, taking your friend's husband or doing something totally degenerate. Some moms even take their daughters' husbands. They do a lot of evil with their freedom because they don't have a boundary. When you have a pasture, you're not exactly free. You're free to have some movement, but you're not free to roam. There's a difference there, isn't there? So when someone says, oh, you're free range versus you're pasture raised, there's a difference in there in space. So for the better women, you're free to exercise what is halal with the person who's made the oath of marriage. It's a oath, a holy oath. No fornication, no adultery. Stay within the confines, right? Stay within the boundaries. This is where you're supposed to be. Now, a woman who is selling herself and she's walking on the street every day in front of your home and she's in a thong and high heels, you know, a decent woman isn't going to want that woman to exercise her butt cheek freedom and degenerate freedom in front of her property, isn't she? We would say, where's the police? This woman should get out of here. We don't want that kind of freedom, right? It creates a threat towards better women's marriages. And it causes a lot of divorces. So yes, it's a moral horror for women to be too enthusiastic about jumping into the bed with every guy, regardless of his marriage status, because she's an erotically liberated, sexually free woman who is, you know, pegging the patriarchy. You see what I'm trying to say? We are the gaping hole that can never be filled, historically. Any hint of promiscuity in women was linked to prostitution. I mean, I have a point there. I mean, if you're hyper promiscuous, there's an exchange of some type of currency or material object, some type of acquisition of something, of title, of job, you know? Because when you're dealing with men who aren't your husband, if you're just sleeping with like a loser, I mean, come on, man. So when women are promiscuous, they can be promiscuous with men who provide commodities, provide something in exchange. The husband provides honor, virtue, dignity, a sinless relationship, right? So when you get into the confines of marriage and you're enjoying it and you're doing what you want with your husband and you provide your duties, he provides his duties, it is a blessed communion of the body, of the souls, and a binding oath upon each other and before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas if you're promiscuous, you don't make any oath to any of those men, and you're the worst form of promiscuous person if you demand nothing in return. So the guy at Starbucks is getting it, the drug dealer on the corner selling weed, dime bags, the loser who sleeps on an air mattress on the floor and plays video games all day, you know, they can't give you nothing, and you give it up for free. A good man he doesn't deserve to have a woman who gave it up to all levels of losers, okay? And a man who has something to gain, you know, who is able to exchange something and like for the woman's access to her, right? What I mean, okay, let me put that in a different way. High level guy, he's rich, he's a stock guy, he's a filthy adulterer. You know, he's going to give the money to the woman to do something, or a fancy date, you know, a boat trip, a vacation, something in exchange for that service, so that there's a compensation for what has occurred, which is a form of prostitution. I mean, if you're going to be promiscuous and ruin your reputation and not get any type of compensation, you're doing bad business and you're also just a moron. If you're going to be promiscuous, it's an evil, dirty sin. But if you're going to be promiscuous and not even gain money or status or a house or a car or something, then you are just dooming yourself to hell even worse. I don't know if I'm wording this right, but what I'm trying to say is a hood rat is like way worse than an escort, even though both are a disgusting sin. You see what I'm saying? A hood rat, like, she has no self-respect, right? She's just getting passed around like a blunt. She's just nasty, you know? Like, any type of loser schmuck can get it. And due to that, her reputation is soiled. The trauma she's going to acquire is going to be more because there's no threshold, there's no standard that men have to jump over to get to her. You know, so it's no wonder why promiscuity is linked to prostitution. Because a woman starts thinking, well, if men control resources in a certain way, I want something in exchange. And where something is being exchanged in that way, is a form of prostitution. Right? Whereas in marriage, it isn't. Because you're both entering into a contract of exclusivity that cuts off promiscuity. See the difference? Insanity or both. And both could lose you the freedom you clearly had too much of. Upfront desire for sex was blamed on hysteria, on womb sickness, on an imbalance of the humors. These days, it's often put down to sexual abuse in childhood. Oddly, this is practically the only occasion when the endemic nature of such abuse is acknowledged. It is strange that some older writings on women, hysteria, womb sickness, it was a difficult time for some women due to superstitious weirdos. As if the problem were not that little girls were being hurt, but that grown women were not adequately controlling themselves. I'd say both. I'd say it's a problem that wicked men are harming children, but it's also a problem that defect leads you to do more risky behaviors. Women growing up learning that our own desire is dirty and dangerous. I mean, it is dangerous. Of course it's dangerous. Desire can definitely, in any circumstance, be dangerous. I have a desire to be a millionaire. Well, walk along the razor's edge, there's going to be some danger there. It's the edge, pushing the limits. There's tons of songs about desire, being so risky. Just because you desire something doesn't mean it's safe. Key factor there. Dirty? Well, it is kind of dirty, depending on how you are allowing that desire to express itself. Most certainly. Desire isn't just this romantic wind filled with rose petals that fall upon a golden bed of silk and feather pillows of a swan. It can be in the muck and mire, and you have to be careful. We learn it early and hard. We learn it in our bones. We learn that the best way we can expect from sexuality is to survive it. Yeah, I mean, you have to survive it in a sense. You're surviving your own self, and it's going to change throughout your life. Before you have kids, after you have kids, the years you're married, it changes. It's always going to be a struggle. And adultery has a strong desire, and it's dirty because, why is it dirty? Because the person who you're going to hurt is going to replay it over and over in their head. It's going to build them into a rage if they actually care about you. If they don't care about you, it's like tossing some old shoes out into the bin. Ain't no connection there. But if someone has invested their heart in you, they've tried to bond their soul to you, they feel for you, they die for you, you betray them. To them, it's this filth. It's like a dagger in the soul that just twists and turns, and the smells and the sounds they imagine make it dirty, which makes it vile, which makes them frustrated and resentful and hurt. So there's a lot of ways you can look at it. If you have this desire to cheat, yes, you have to survive that. You have to say no. And then wait for the wave to pass. And then wait for the next attack. But you discipline, control, manage, and have a higher standard of ethics and manners and decency and decorum. What I've learned from women's experience with sexuality, writes Catherine A. McKinnon, is that exploitation and degradation produce a grateful complicity in exchange for survival. Okay, so in exchange for survival. So women needing protection and being a kept woman, she contends it's exploitation and degradation. So women having to lower their standards or be exploited and do things they don't want to do, just to survive. Okay, you're gonna have to have some exploitation in the workforce. That's the way it goes. So that comes part of life in a sad way. We try to escape that, right? But to survive means you're gonna have to do things you don't want to do sometimes, right? You're in customer service, someone's rude to you, you get, your honor is degraded when you can't reply how you would if you were not in that job, because you need to pay the rent. See what I'm saying? You gotta pay the health insurance. So someone's being a dick, you just have to keep that. Okay, thank you. I'll put that forward to the manager. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Like, but if they weren't, you know, maybe you pistol whip them if you didn't need the job. You know, exploitation sadly happens. We try to rectify that through laws, labor laws, and other things, and encouraging bosses to be good to their employees. But exploitation happens. Definitely happens. They produce self-loathing to the point of extinction of self. Self-loathing can be a problem. Yes. And it is respect for self that makes resistance conceivable. Yes, when you respect yourself, you'll resist. Right? So if you respect yourself, I would say you're not going to be hyper promiscuous, because you would see the danger. You would recognize the fact that there are men who are super charismatic, right? They can finesse you right out of your clothes and then drop you so quickly and so out of the blue and walk away like they never knew you, and you will be left with that memory for the rest of your life till you die. Right? So don't open yourself up to trauma. The more people you let into your body, the more they imprint on you. And the more you alienate from your femaleness, from your femininity, to hump like a man, it's not gonna work. You just start to break apart and actually, I think, become very mentally ill. So the desire leading you astray is definitely dangerous. You have a desire to eat some broccoli, but if you only eat broccoli and nothing else, well, there's a problem, ain't it? So where is the desire being applied, and what are the parameters you should place on it? Desire is dangerous for women. Desire makes us ugly and unworthy of human treatment. If you let it run wild, yeah. Why should I respect you if you can't respect yourself? If you're a woman and you're sleeping with married men, I'm sorry, your desire led you to do that, and you're unworthy of respect until you change that behavior. If you sincerely repent, change that behavior, preach against it, earn back your respect, cool. But you did a despicable thing, I'll dislike that thing about you. I'll have a certain level of manners, but ugly action renders me to perceive you as your soul being ugly. Even if you are at 10, you do ugly, nasty behaviors, I'm gonna see you as a wicked, evil, ugly person. Because how you're behaving is spreading pain, spreading unhappiness, spreading disease, spreading abortion, which is death, the culling of innocent babies. There's a lot that could be said. So you have to look at it from multiple angles. So we squash it down, we stamp it out, and even in the moment we learn that to be respected, even on an intimate, one-to-one level, we sometimes have to feign reluctance, let ourselves be chased and coerced, and this, of course, further complicates an already complicated situation. Better to be chased than you chase the man. If she wants women to be running around, it's different, man. When the men pursue you, women sometimes are like, oh, but then they see this other guy who totally ignores them and they chase him. But if you catch that stag, sometimes you're always doubting if that one really likes you, or you just pestered him enough, or you baby trapped him. You don't really feel like you have a firm hold. Whereas somebody who pursued you, you feel more like the prize. When you chase a man, he's the prize. When he chases you, you're the prize. That's really how I've come to see it. You know, if you're a man and you have been told that attractive women often act like they don't want to F you, how are you meant to respect the wishes of those who really actively don't want to F you? If you have eroticized female sexuality hesitancy, now that's a interesting phrase. Men liking hesitancy, she's framing it as something that has just been eroticized. I think from what I've learned about a lot of men now is they like the shyness. It hints at purity. Now that doesn't mean there's a line between a woman being hesitant and a woman in a good way, and then not someone being R-worded. Do you see the difference here? And a crazy man gets excited when the woman absolutely doesn't want it, like, which is dangerous and demonic. But when a woman is classily and elegantly and cute, even depending on like her personality, doesn't like, it's like no, and like he likes it, then that makes the man happy. You know, like it's a charm. Female hesitancy, when it's classy, is charming. It's refreshing. Whereas raw, slutty, whorish, nasty, pornish energy evokes a different type of visceral reaction. I don't react the same way to a cobra dancing at me than I do to a very fluffy Persian cat kitten. See the difference? When you have two types of women, one who is, you know, kind, homely, she's not easy to get, she has her wits about her, she's from a good family, I'm gonna treat her different even on a regular level than somebody who I know lets guys rail her behind McDonald's so she can get a pack of cigarettes. There's just a level, there's a threat level too, of chaos, of danger. So I've met, you know, a lot of different women in my life, and I've been around gang women. I've got to see, sadly, the result of how some women become hood rats, and it's not a pretty picture. I've been around these witchy, hypersexual ladies. The eyebrows get more pointy, you know, they look more like a Disney villain, and it's just like, you don't feel good to be around. It feels like a crypt keeper vampire versus a rosy-cheeked, you know, freckled face woman, or a nice woman with an afro who's from Kenya, whose parents were traditional. There's just a different energy there, you know? Like my friends the Chicanas, whose parents didn't really care about them, versus the girls whose parents were from Mexico and were immigrants and raised them in Catholicism. Like, those girls were just different. They knew their worth. They knew their worth, and they weren't gonna just let any loser tap it. Nope. Nope. How are you meant to suddenly switch to a culture of real consent, where the appropriate thing to do when someone is pulling away is to let them go? Well, she's proposed a lot for us to think about here. But we're looking into her mind and seeing her perspective, and I totally disagree with it. Because it gets you into trouble. Unleashing your desire, like Anna Karenina, Leo Tolstoy, good example. Very good example of when you let desire run wild. Many more can be argued in history, but the leaf blowers are blowing around outside, so I gotta go before they get to the door. If you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. Hope to see you there.